Hey everybody, it's Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks, where we talk about how everything you do and say speaks for you if you wanted to or not. And I've been bombarded, actually, with colleagues and former colleagues and friends and people who listen to the podcast with questions about communication and why can't people communicate in the workplace? So I thought that I would break it down and talk about that because, as you know, if you have ever listened to this podcast once, if you haven't, I'll say it for you first time here and 95th time for everybody else. Communication is the most important thing. It's the most important thing. If you can't communicate, you got nothing. You got nothing. So let's talk about why communication is so important. First, communication is the most widely cited skill on job postings. That's regardless of industry, regardless of level, regardless of job, regardless of title, regardless of category, regardless of skill set. The most, according to Indeed, communication, which everybody knows Indeed, job posting site galore. Communication is the most widely cited skill required in job postings at 32%. That's across, as I said, all jobs, all industries, from leadership down to line workers, at all pay grades, from $12 an hour to, I don't know, $500,000 a year. At 32%, the next one down is below 20%. So it's a huge jump. So it's the most widely cited skill. And you have to imagine that it's the most widely cited skill because you can't assume that people know how to communicate. Because if you did, you wouldn't put it on that job description, right? If you go on TikTok, and regular listeners to this podcast will know that I'm fascinated with TikTok and the algorithm, and it's just an amazing thing for a lot of reasons. Sort of my left side, right side brain, TikTok, LinkedIn. But that work side, that corporate side of TikTok is chock full of examples, of real examples of people who have caught video, in the middle of a conversation with their employee or their employer or their peer or their customer service, of terrible workplace communication. Communication is the top trait that can differentiate a high performer across the board. Even in jobs that you might think, oh, they don't, I need engineering skills, I need developer skills, I need, welding skills, whatever it is. If you can't communicate well, you can't get along well. If you can't get along well, you're not going to get assigned the good projects. In general, 99% of the time, communication, your ability to communicate, has a lot to say about your ability to progress or get new jobs or get the good projects or get a raise or whatever it is. So, why communication? Because effective communication in the workplace is the key to employee engagement, team effectiveness, high productivity, positive environment, healthy work culture, boosted job satisfaction, increased innovation and camaraderie, all the things everybody wants. Who doesn't want all those things, right? Everybody wants them, including the bean counters, who can see the impact of good communication right in the bottom line in profit. But that's another podcast. I may have already done that a few times. I'll do it again in 2025 for sure. So we're going to do a 7-part series on how to be a great communicator. And I'll be sharing with you some of my biggest flubs, from like 3 days ago, because we all keep learning. Good communication. It's not simple. I'll take it back. It is simple. It's not easy. It requires focus. And as we all know, focus is our friend. Requires focus, it requires retention, it requires brain cells. It requires practice. So I like to think of myself as a good communicator. I may have written a book about it. I may run a company that does communications. But we all screw up and we all can get better. So today, number 1 in the series, we're going to talk about active listening. Active listening is listening to understand and listening so that the perfect person talking to you knows that you are listening to understand. So I'm going to go through a few scenarios with you. How familiar are these? So imagine I'm the boss. Imagine that and so an employee is sharing a concern about a workload. And I feel just overwhelmed with the number of projects I'm assigned to me this quarter. I really need some help. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. And the manager says, "We're all busy. Just make a priority list and get it done." Who hasn't gotten that? Hello. Right? There's an one. Two, imagine you have two peers. And one person says to the other person, same level, peers in a group, suggests a new approach to streamline a process. And I think we should automate the reporting process to save some time. And the other person says, automation takes too long to set up. It's faster if I do it myself. Let's stick to what we know, what works. Heard that one? Yeah. Okay. This is a whole side of TikTok customer service. How about if a customer calls to complain? That's what it sounds like to the person who's not listening to understand about a problem. The product I purchased is not working as advertised. Did you read the manual? Most problems are covered there. I'm going to get a really good example of this later. Or how about if you're in a meeting with multiple people and you go around the room and the new policy, I say something like the new policy might create challenges for a team's workflow. And someone else says, we already discussed it and it's been decided. Let's move on. I may have said that a few times mistakenly. Or even worse, if it's the worst, most of HR people are so good and they mean so well and they try their best, but HR people get a bad rep. Just because of the few bad eggs, right? So what if an employee says, I'm confused about the changes in our health benefit plan. And the HR person says, it's all in the email we sent out last week. Yeah. That person clearly did not listen to my podcast about needing to say things. One and done doesn't make it. You need to say it over and over and over again. So just those examples, I think we've all either been that person or been on the receiving end of that person, for sure. One of the two, maybe probably both, depending on who we are. Listening just to answer the question and just to move on is really disharmonious and contributes to bad. They suck. They suck. If you're the person doing the interrupting, if you're the person listening just to answer and move on, everyone's talking about you. Everybody. She doesn't care. He's an a-hole. She doesn't hear me. He has no idea what's going on. They're so confusing. He sent me an email, but it makes no sense. Or, no matter who you are, no matter what role you have, if you're the boss, that's even worse. If you're the boss on this person or the most entry-level person on the team, the more you listen to understand, the better teammate, the better burger flipper, the better boss, the better anything you'll be. The less confusion you'll have on your team and the better performance you're going to get. Period. And if you're the boss and you listen to understand and set that as the goal and set that as the model that everyone else should be modeling off of you, copying you. If you're the boss and you're not doing this, don't expect everybody else to be doing it either, right? You set the tone. Your behavior is what everybody's watching. So, because communication is not just what is said, it's how you feel about what is being said and how it's said. And people feel better when they know you've heard them. When they know you heard them, what you say to them will click more. I'm going to say it again, because repetition is our friend as well. When people feel better about the conversation and they feel that you've heard them, then what you've said to them will click faster, because a lot of reasons, but let's just, it doesn't grind on the soul. I've talked about this. If it's grinding on your soul, you can't hear anything. It's taking up all your energy. And we should be in a place, Let's be in a place where we're just trying not to have everything grind on our soul, so we're not taking energy away from the work at hand. Because when we take energy from the work at hand, mistakes happen, waste happens, sloppiness happens, and then it just creates just a vortex of confusion and dissatisfaction, which we just want to avoid. So let's give other examples about those conversations that would demonstrate to the person talking that, or talking to you, that you're actively listening. So, and obviously these answers, I'm going to give these different examples from the same scenarios I just discussed. And you're going to put them in your own words, right? You may feel like a tool using some of the words I'm going to use. Don't worry about it. Just put them in your own words. But it's the point that you are focusing, you're giving them eye contact. You're not you don't have your phone in your hand looking at it, right? You're paying attention to that person. You're not, if they're sitting across from you, you're not like typing away, looking over here going, Don't do that. No, put away your phone, turn off your screen if you have to, look at the other person in the eye, or if you're talking to them on the phone, make sure that they know that you're listening to them. And how do you make sure, right? You're repeating their words. You're asking for clarification, whatever, but you're paying attention. You're only paying attention to them. That's the first thing. Seems pretty simple, right? Stop multitasking when you're talking to people. Just pay attention to them and they're going to know you're listening. Very simple. It's simple and it's hard because we're so used, our phones are dinging off, our emails going off. Turn off your alerts, put down your phone, unless you're on the phone. Don't have your Slack up doing multiple things. Look at the person or talk to the person. And that's all you're doing. Your only job is that. It'll go much faster for you, I promise. So let's talk about a couple of examples. So that employee, I feel so overwhelmed. Got so much going on. I have so many number of projects assigned to me this quarter. How am I going to do it? Well, that sounds rough. And I didn't quite understand that you had them as, can you walk me through your projects so we can figure out how to manage your workload better? Now, often when you do that, right, the person goes, oh my gosh, someone's going to help me. That's the reaction. You haven't said that you're going to rearrange the work. You haven't said that you're taking anything off their plate. All you've said is, share with me the issue, show me what's going on, so maybe we can figure something out, right? You haven't conceded a thing. You're helping the person do the things that you want them to do, right? And you're acknowledging that, it's a tough thing. I feel overwhelmed. Okay, let me help you. Let's figure this out. Let's figure this out so you won't be so overwhelmed. What if it's the two people who, I have a colleague, and we're the peers, and like, I want to do it this way. You want to do it that way. I've been here longer than you, maybe. And just being open to someone else's idea, right? So I think we should automate the reporting process to save time. So if 6 months has happened since the last time you tried that, everything has changed. Everything in that report. If a year has happened, even more has changed. So, know that things change. So just because you tried it before doesn't mean you would try it again the same way. Doesn't mean if you tried something before and it failed, does not mean that you could try the same exact thing and it wouldn't succeed the next time for different factors. So how about interesting idea? Can you explain how the automation would work and the kind of time savings you're envisioning? Now, so again, you're not saying yes, you're not saying no. You're saying explain it to me so we can talk about how it might work and what savings you're expecting, or that person's expecting. This, sort of keys back to a podcast we did before. Like when I have new employees, I say, please just do it my way first, and then come to me and tell me how we can improve it. Because if you do it my way first, then you'll have a sense of the dependencies that I care about. And then you can, will have some sense of how things there's a reason we do the things we do the way we do them. Doesn't mean it can't be improved. Everything can be improved. But if you do it my way first, then improve it, come to me and say, hey, I have some ideas, then at least you have the sense of doing it first. So this is the same idea, right? Interesting idea. Can you explain how the automation would work and the kind of time savings and then you can have the conversation. And if they can't say it, well, then have them go back and say it, right? They're not ready to have that conversation with you yet. Customer service. In customer service, at the end of a good customer service call, just ask for the manager. Or a code that you can say, I want to give you I want to tell your manager how great this was. They don't get that very often. And people are trying hard, right? They're trying. And maybe they got off a terrible call and you got them next. But I would just say, if you get a great call, you get the service you want, ask for the manager and say, hey, I just want to let Sally did a great job. I feel, thank you for, I want you to know that she did a great job. Just do it. Okay. That's an aside. How about the product I purchased isn't working as advertised? I'm sorry to hear that. Can you tell me more about what's happening? I want to make sure we resolve this for you. Now, you haven't said that the product is wrong. You haven't said anything. You've said, I'm sorry to hear that, so they know that you're listening. Tell me more so I can help you get off the phone and get this thing working, right? I'm going to give you an example. From the Wayback Machine, when my client was Packard Bell. So a lot of you aren't going to know who Packard Bell is, but Packard Bell really revolutionized personal computing and the home for lots of reasons that we won't talk about now. But in customer service, there was a huge customer service team, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And a woman called about the mouse. And the mouse wasn't working. She couldn't get the mouse to work. And the thing got escalated because, she was having a hard time describing what was going on. And the person on the other side, well, just, take the mouse and then click. I'm clicking on it. In the end, they figured out that she had a sewing machine and she thought the mouse was a foot pedal. This is a long time ago. That's how old I am. But they just kept on the phone. This guy was, the person who ran Packard Bell's customer service was amazing. But he just kept on the phone until he figured out what was going on. Take the mouse off the floor. Literally, what happened? Oh my goodness. So, but if they're like, she just doesn't know what's going on. It's defective, send her a new one, blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't have helped because she would just put that thing on the floor again, use it as a foot pedal. Listening to understand. Wins every day. What if you're the colleague in that meeting and someone interrupts you? That new policy might create challenges for a team's workflow. You raise a good point. Can you elaborate on the specific challenges you foresee so we can address them? So again, we discuss this, we've already discussed it. It's been decided. Let's move on. Is not, so what? Maybe that person wasn't in the room. So what? What if it wasn't resolved? So what? Doesn't mean just because you discuss it doesn't mean it got done in a good way. And you're forcing by saying you raise a good point, elaborate more. You're not saying yes or no. You're saying, tell me more so that you can get clarity. Our favorite thing in the world, clarity. And having them tell you what they expect and so that you can resolve it. Because if someone didn't get it, one and done doesn't work, right? There we go. And then what about the HR person? I'm confused about the changes to our healthcare benefits. I understand, can it be a lot to process? What specifically is unclear? Let's go over it together. So again, one and done doesn't work. Just because you said it before doesn't mean it was understood. Doesn't mean they got it. I literally 3 days ago, a couple employees were like, you haven't responded to my emails. I'm like, what are you talking about? I see all my emails. And it was some glitchy thing with my filters and my employees' emails were going into my junk. I don't know. I must have done something wrong. And if I had counted on them to do it, maybe they didn't see it. Glitches happen all the time. So those are just some examples of how to be actively listening. Again, one, why active listen? So you can actually resolve the problem. so it doesn't come back again and again and again. 2, so you can help the person move forward. They came to you for a reason. 3, so you can show the people your respect so that they know that you're listening to understand and to resolve. Because when you're not doing those things, it goes into a vortex of hell. Just going to say it. It does. All right. Just try those things. Going over to the show notes page, I'll have some worksheets on that. You can download them and look at them and use them for yourself. If you like to, again, use your own words. You raise a good point. Hey, that's interesting. Cool thought. Whatever you want to say to indicate that you think it's a good thought or that you're going to listen. But you're always saying, acknowledging that person has an issue and then asking for the elaboration. So then you can solve it together. That's the first piece of being a good communicator, actively listening. All right, everybody. Until next time, I'm Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks.